Hi, everyone. Paul Wilson here. As promised, we are beginning our question and answer session on my YouTube channel, specifically around Adobe Captivate. And we're just going to wait for some people to join here. What the heck is that? Hi, Wayne. I've got something weird going on my computer here, so we'll just mute that. I was hearing the ad with a delay for my own video, and it was very strange. So guys, welcome to this new year, 2017. And I'm happy to be here on my YouTube channel, hopefully sharing some questions and answers about Adobe Captivate and e-learning in general and any other topic that is applicable. Gotta love the ads, yes. Well, you know what? There's really not a lot of point in doing YouTube videos if it wasn't for the ads. I can speak from now a couple of years of experience here. It's not made me a rich man, but it is nice to have a little bit of an extra revenue stream. The way I see it is that basically it pays for my copy of Adobe Captivate by doing all these videos and monetizing them. So it certainly, unless you've got millions and millions of views like people like PewDiePie or Casey Neistat, or there's a handful of others, iJustine and all those guys that literally make a living at YouTube. That's not me, to be very clear. I am not making a living at YouTube. I just use it to give me a little compensation for the effort that I put into answering people's questions and coming up with videos to help you guys out with Adobe Captivate. So, today I thought I would get things started. I know you guys might have some questions to ask, and I'm looking forward to seeing those. You can use the chat functionality. It'll be, see if I can point in the right direction. Is it here or here? It's going to be on the side here. You can chat, type in your questions if you have them. In the meantime, I'm going to start things off and just talk a little bit about my website for those that may or may not be aware of the website that I have. I'll just share it with you here on my other screen, paulwilsonlearning.com, or Paul Wilson Learning and Design. And it's basically an advertisement for what I do. Like you, like all of you, I'm an e-learning instructional designer who earns his living doing freelance instructional design and development work. I'm currently working for a few different companies right now, but of course, it's important to note that I'm always looking for the next opportunity. So if you guys know of anything that's coming up, perhaps your organization needs to hire some temporary help to get a particular project done, or maybe someone who's a learning and design manager who's looking for an instructional designer to develop some e-learning for them, you certainly can refer them to my website, paulwilsonlearning.com. Really easy to remember. Another benefit, though, is that when I'm not quite feeling the YouTube video or vibe for certain things, I often write articles as well. And some of them are focused at, training managers. Some of them are focused at fellow instructional designers like you and me. And, sometimes I will showcase some of the projects I've worked on here. So you can check out that part of my website as well. And just on a fun note, One of my hobbies, I don't do e-learning all the time. One of my hobbies, of course, is photography. I'm not a professional photographer by any means. I just love it. It's fun. I don't get to do it as often as I would like, but if you want to check out some of my photography, this is, just some of my favorite photos. Some of them are work related, like working at an international airport gives you the opportunity to maybe see, I don't know, what is this, an F-16, or as we call them in Canada, CF-16 or CF-18 or whatever, the snowbirds, and obviously, access to close-up shots of airplanes. But working in an airport also afforded me the chance to do a little bit of travel. So there's some travel photos here as well, things that I'm proud of, photos that I've taken, the time to actually compose and do some really neat stuff here. These are supposed to be clickable. I'm not sure why they're not, but maybe I'll look at that later. The other thing I have, and for those that have followed my channel for a while, may not be aware that you can actually download some of the files associated with the projects that I've worked on. So that's the purchase section here. Obviously, you can pre-purchase my design and development time, my consultation services, but I have all these CPTX files available, and they're really inexpensive. I usually only price them at $5 each. Not, mostly because they're not complete projects. They're just, they're associated with the video that I've did. Some people have had trouble duplicating what I've done in the videos, so making the files available for them, and usually the links directly for the ones that are related, But there's some stuff in here, some of my advanced actions that I've created, how to make your own multiple choice questions. They're very raw. They're not, like I said, they're not complete projects. They're just, sort of sample projects where you can take stuff from those CPTX files and apply them to your own project as well. So there's, I don't know how many's here, maybe a dozen or more, and you're certainly available to download those. The contact me section of my website, pretty straightforward. I wouldn't mind just taking a moment and reminding people that, again, I am running a business and also doing the social media thing as well. So when you have a question for me, by all means, go to youtube.com/Paul Wilson Learning. You don't even need this little C, by the way. Just go to Paul Wilson Learning on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Paul Wilson Learning, and pick any video and start a new question or start a new post or start a new thread, whatever you want to call it. And that's going to, I'm going to see every one of those. And I have certainly worked, anyone who's been looking at my YouTube channel for any length of time will know that I work really hard to answer every question. Even if I don't have a solution, I do like to answer the question and maybe point you in the right direction. But I do have this contact me button down here for those that are interested in hiring me to design or develop, consult, coach, mentor, whatever it might be. And, a lot of times I've got new instructional designers who really don't know how to get started, and they just want to have me available as someone they can ask, someone who can, to provide them a little bit of feedback maybe on their work. I've certainly done a lot of work for different individuals as well as organizations. So that's a great way to initiate a business relationship with me. On the social thing, I just sort of have my Twitter feed here. So it's important to note that you can follow me a number of different ways. Certainly, you can find me on the Adobe eLearning community. That's separate from here. We can actually go to that real quick if you like. Let's see here. There it is. So it's real easy to find me here as well. You can literally search for me by name. I don't have some kind of alternative login or anything like that. Here's a blog post I did where I recently talked about 5 things never to put in e-learning. You know, it wouldn't take too long to find articles that I've written here because I really enjoy the community. For me, I do the YouTube videos. I do my website, and obviously participate in the e-learning, Adobe e-learning community for two reasons primarily. Number one, to give back to the community, because when I got started, I had a lot of questions. I went to other people's websites, I went to the blogs and the forums, and I read lots of stuff, and I asked lots of questions, and I got those answers. 10 years later, I'm pretty comfortable with the software. I think my greatest strength is my ability to look at a problem and break it down into smaller individual problems, little chunks of problems, and solve those easier to solve problems, and then come up with a complete solution that does many things, let's say. But obviously the other aspect to it is business. So again, if you guys know of you know, a learning and development manager who's looking for temporary contract work, freelance instructional designers like myself, I don't want to compete with anything that you guys are doing on your own. Of course, take care of yourselves first, but you know, I've gotten a couple of jobs because of my involvement in the e-learning community and the stuff I do on YouTube. So so anytime you guys want to have some Q&A, just jump right in onto the chat portion there. I know that both Wayne and Christian have typed something in here. The chat is to your left. My left or your left? I don't know. So go ahead and ask any questions that you might have. You know, in the meantime, maybe I can show you a couple of things that I've been working on recently. Take a look at, actually, this is something I wouldn't mind sharing here. Let's take a look at this version of it here. So a project I've been working on, technically I'm under NDA to not disclose who the company is, so I won't say their name, but I think it'll be pretty obvious. This is a project I've worked on, and I really wanted to try to keep the optional components of the course as separate elements. So one of the things that I've done with this project is I've built this whole little navigation control up here, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. The process for that is, and again, it goes back to what I was saying. I think one of my greatest strengths is the ability to take a very complex, sorry, my dogs are barking in the background there. They'll calm down in a minute. One of my things is to take a very complex problem, and that's like, how do I build this multi-control navigation control toolbar that does so many different things? Well, this case, what I've done is I've broken the problem down into smaller chunks. You know, so in this case here, we have the first button here is a pop-out menu. And what you can't see on the screen, actually, if you look down in my timeline here, you can see that there's a table of contents group. Let me show that. This is just hiding it on the timeline. This is just a series of buttons. It's not complicated. But by creating a single button that's really just a smart shape being used as a button, I can run a very simple advanced action that allows me to display that table of content grouped. It's a grouped object, or a set of grouped objects. And it's very simple. I created a variable called custom table of contents open. And it either gets an assignment of 0 when it's closed or 1 when it's open. I check that off because it is a conditional action, and either show the table of contents. I change the state of my button because I want it to glow when it's open. And then I assign that variable with the value of 1. If the table of contents is already open, I want it now to close. So in the else statements, I hide the table of contents group. I change the state of open table of contents back to normal, and then I assign that value back to 0. Very simple advanced action. This particular hidden object, most of the time it's hidden, is on the page. It's a grouped object, like I said, and it appears for the rest of the project. And this button is on the first page, and this grouped object is on the first page. And they simply display or hide depending on whether you've clicked the button at a certain time or not. Works really well. I think I have a video on this, so you should check that out. Another aspect of this navigation control bar, whatever you want to call it, is the closed captioning button, which I leave grayed out under normal circumstances to indicate to users that it's not currently active. But again, a very simple advanced action. It's called toggle CC. And this works like this. It just simply says, very similar to the other one, if CP command CC, and this is a variable, a command variable in Adobe Captivate that's already there. It's a system variable. You don't need to create it. If it's equal to 0, assign CP command CC with a value of 1. In other words, turn closed captioning on, and then change the state of the button, right, to on. And again, it's an else statement that goes with it because it's a toggle, right? And it says if the closed captioning is 0, if it's not 0, because that's what the question is here, I'm getting confused. Assign closed captioning with 0, in other words, turn it off, and then change the state of that button back to normal. Very simple to do. And again, this is an object that appears on the first slide and stays till the very end of the project, just using the timing control rest of project. I also check off for these ones too, place object on top. That way, of course, if there's something that I've got on a further or later slide, it's not going to interfere with that. Again, a very similar advanced action for the audio. We'll go into here. I've got a mute, unmute toggle button. Same thing. So if, because there's a command mute system variable is 0, then assign command mute with 1. Change the state of mute to mute. And if it's not, assign command mute with 0. Change the state of mute back to normal. Very straightforward. And this works really well. I've also got a job aid built into this particular project, so I simply make that available through an advanced action here. So simply open the location of that particular job aid, and users can access that. And I've got a neat little icon for an Adobe PDF document. The help button is actually probably even just as simple as anything else. It's just simply a particular slide that I have after my quiz results slide. So you'll never navigate to this using any other method other than clicking on this help icon. And that brings you to that specific page. And of course, it also hides the table of content and assigns the value of custom TOC open with 0. So it closes the table of content and then jumps to that slide. And then, of course, on that slide, you can simply return to the previous slide that you started. So it's a very simple thing. If you break this problem down into, as I've done here, 5 individual elements, really. By themselves, they're not complicated advanced actions. This pop-out menu bar is not a complicated solution. It's just, building this takes a little bit of time and thought. And again, breaking those problems down into individual problems is probably one of the easiest ways to deal with those, what seemingly are insurmountable problems. I noticed that Christian asked a question here while I was chatting there. Paul, what's your workflow for motion path accuracy? That's actually a really good question, Christian. One of the things that you can do, let's close this project for now. I'm not going to save it in case I made some kind of weird thing happen there. Let's just go to a blank project, relatively small. Motion paths are tricky because unlike other objects in Adobe Captivate, you really can't set a specific, precise point for them to begin, start, or how far they go across the screen, things like that. Let me just get a nice blank page here. We'll just use the white theme. I apologize if my mic is too sensitive. I know that, sometimes when you're tapping the desk, it sometimes comes through. But unfortunately, I just have the basic mic stand. I don't have a proper isolating stand. So let's just take a smart shape for starters here and see if we can illustrate. I'll just make that like so. And we'll go into timing. Now, here's the trick. One of the things about, let's say, for example, let's go into entrance here. I'll use an entrance effect as an example. So we'll say ease in left. So we have this motion path, and it could be anything. I could also just be creating, a movement, whatever it might be. In fact, you know what? Let's do that. Let's make something a little bit more custom. Let's create a motion path here, and we're just going to do a custom line. I don't do enough of these to honestly know whether I'm starting at the beginning or ending. Is that right? Let's just preview that so I know what I'm doing, right? Okay. The solution here I find is to, and I haven't done this in a while. So we have this effect. I find that the best way to, if you want to, let's say you have a series of objects and you want them to all perform the same movement to the same distance to the same accuracy, the best bet is to save that as a custom motion path. And you can do this to your desktop. Let's just call this custom motion path. I'll just say custom, that's fine. And that's going to save that particular animation. So now when I grab, let's say, another object, and we'll just do this guy here right next to him, and we want to apply a motion path to that. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Basic entrance and motion path. I thought there was a way. Oh, maybe it's here. Browse effect. There we go. Go to my desktop. There's that custom motion path. So now I have the exact same motion path. So if you save it as their custom motion path, and you can do this for not just motion paths. Let's just do a preview of this. Let's just do play slide. They'll come in exactly the same distance and obviously the same timing and everything like that. Let me clear off these guys here, and we'll just, and it's not a foolproof solution because there are circumstances where you can't necessarily save a custom motion path for that stuff. But let's just say you had, I think a really good example is, let's say you wanted to have something like that menu navigation that I showed before, where you wanted to have, let's say, 5 or 6 identical objects to appear on screen at the same time. And we'll just duplicate these as well here. That's a good question, though, Christian, because it is something that comes up from time to time. Of course, I mean, if I wanted these all to appear at the same time, probably the smartest thing I could do is to group them and have a single motion path for the grouped object. But if there's a reason you can't group them and you need to apply that same motion path, you could select one, and we could go into timing, choose, let's try Let's try entrance, and we'll choose an ease in right. We'll have it come in from off screen. And let's say for whatever reason, the default distance is just not far enough, right? You need it to actually start way back here. So again, same idea. We're going to save that as a custom motion path, and we'll go to the desktop. We'll call this one here ease in PDW, my initials. And then what I can do is then again load that in as a custom motion path for all of them. So hopefully that helps. And that should work perfectly. You can also make, further versions. Like let's say, for example, I want the ease in effect to be applied on all of them, and I only want the effect duration to be 1. And maybe, I don't know if it will save the transition, but I'm pretty sure it will show this. And you can, of course, then save that. Let's, oops, wrong button. Let's save that as, go to desktop, we'll go ease in, and we'll call it ease in PDW2, and we'll save that. So now what I can do is I can apply that custom effect to all of them here. Let's just make sure we're choosing the right one. And this will now include so watch the ease in percentage number here. So it's going to update that and make sure that all the other settings that go along with it, not just the motion path. And then let's do the final one here. So again, now we can preview the slide, and well, it won't show that. Hang on, let's preview the project. Sorry, you kind of missed that because it showed up on my other screen. So they're all coming in from the exact same place. Obviously, my timing is off, but and of course, as you know, you can control that. Oh, I have 2 different effects on this one. That's weird. That's right, because I was selecting it here. I should actually delete the current applied effect and then apply them separately. But anyway, so Wayne asks, what would you say some of the advantage you have found for grouping objects? Probably the easiest or the most significant advantage of grouping an object is if you need to move it, quite frankly, or if you need it to be, if you have, let's say, for example, you have, let's say you've got this sort of menu idea like I have on that other object. That other project rather, sorry. Let's go to, we'll just best fits, fine. So let's say I have an object that appears and disappears and appears and disappears. Maybe it is a navigation control like this, and we're going to add a bunch of, I'll just do the quick and dirty version here, add a bunch of buttons here. And let's duplicate that a couple of times. There are some limitations to grouping objects together. So there's, let's say, a bunch of buttons here. If I group this as a single object, right, I can give that group a specific name. Let's call that navigation. And if I'm writing an advanced action, and let's say I've got a button on here that's going to close that that navigation control, or maybe even something as simple as on enter, we can actually hide that navigation control without writing an advanced action at all. So as you can see here, I can, treat multiple objects as one and make references to them within advanced action. So rather than saying hide box, hide button 1, hide button 2, hide button 3, hide button 4, and then when you want to open it again, show background, show button 1, show button 2, show button 3, show, your advanced action suddenly becomes a lot simpler because you can hide grouped object 1, show grouped object 1. So it's great for displaying things. Also, if you need to move an object like this, so if you wanted to have, I've never had a great deal of success with this because there's always like something that throws this off. But let's say you wanted to have this slide in from off of the stage, right? You could actually apply an effect, right? Like an entrance effect, and let's choose ease in right. And again, because I'm only working with one item here, right? So now I can preview this, and it's treating it like a single object, even though it's actually 4 different objects. So there's certain advantages. Those are the things that that I think can save you some time. Again, the best example is that navigation control. There's a video that explains how I built it, but that's a grouped object. So on that, let me bring that back up actually, and show you that here. Oops, open. We'll do this one here. But I think that's a huge thing. Like, you know, so Wayne's asking here, so would you then take that group and copy it on each additional slide and have the associated advanced actions move with it as well? So I kind of skimmed over that maybe a little bit here. Let me just zoom in a little bit here and just show you guys. So here it is. This is slide 1, right? Slide 2, there's no object there at all. Slide 3, no object. 40 slides later, there's no extra objects in my timeline. It's simply on my first slide. And so there's 2 things. Number 1, the table of contents group, right? If I open this up, you can see it's made up of all these different objects. Oops, kind of went away from that there. Let's make it visible. Okay. And I'll just make this best fit here. All right. So this group object, and if I select it, you'll see it a little more clearly. Let me tell you what that is made up of, first of all. So there's a background blue box. It's a smart shape, nothing fancy. You can sub-click that, and you can see that within the, you know, the group here, actually. There's also a button for each of the lessons, including the final test and the summary for this particular project. So these buttons are their own navigation controls. If you go over to the Properties Inspector and look under Actions, it's going to run a script called Jump to Module 1. It could be just go to Module 1 or go to slide number, whatever it is, but I needed to close this and hide this object as well. There's also a title here, which is actually part of the background, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a separate close button. You may not be able to see it on your screen here, but right here is the little collapse icon. So this is my own table of contents, if you will. And the whole thing, the whole group, this is the cool part here. There it is in my timeline. I uncheck it as visible so I can work on my other slides. But that's the same object, right? All I've done is I've taken the single object, and if you look at timing, display for rest of project. So I don't need to copy it to every single additional slide, and I don't need to have multiple copies of all the advanced actions to open and close it. I have to write a little bit of an advanced action for each of my next and back buttons to make sure that if I click next, it closes this as well, if it happens to be open. But other than that, you write it once, you put it on your first page, display it for the rest of the project, hide it on your timeline so it's not going to interfere with designing the rest of the course. There you go. You've got your own custom table of contents that, quite frankly, works a lot better than what's built into Adobe Captivate. So that's what I do. And again, it goes back to, I think, that greatest strength that I offer is that, here's a solution. It's made up of a whole bunch of little tiny solutions all grouped together into one. And it's a really simple solution. If you look at each part of it, it's all very simple. So rest of project, Christian saying rest of project is cool for this. Absolutely. In a few versions, anyone's who's every now and then we get people on my videos and stuff that are still on Captivate 8 or Captivate 7 or Captivate 6. And I'll tell you, Captivate 9 with the multi-state objects and being able to retain states on different slides and return slides, and the features that we got in Captivate 9 are second to none. If you're still on Captivate 8, you should upgrade to 9 because I think it's improved my workflow. It's eliminated so much work that I used to have to do. I go back and I look at the projects that I used to create for my previous employers, and I just think, wow, if I had Captivate 9 back when I was using Captivate 6 or Captivate 5, man, it wouldn't have taken me 6 months to build that accessibility course, or that WMIS course would have taken only a month or two because I didn't have to do all that custom work that was so difficult. So it really is, yeah, no, Wayne, totally worth the upgrade from 8 and below. And here's the thing too, if you are looking at upgrading, now's the time to do it while 9 is still the current version. And I have no inside track on this particular thing. I did between 8 and 9 because I was a beta tester for 9. But I can tell you that one day, suddenly Captivate 10 will come out, or Captivate X, or whatever they'll end up calling it. And the thing about my experience is that once they've made that transition, the previous version's no longer available. So right now you can upgrade from Captivate 8 to 9 for a much greater reduced price. Now, if you're on a subscription model, it literally doesn't matter. Let's just go to adobe.com for a second here and see what the current, I don't even know off the top of my head what the current price is. I don't want to start a trial. Captivate. So if I wanted to buy Adobe Captivate right now, there's a couple of options. Obviously, subscription is a great choice, $29.99 US per month. That sounds expensive, but anyone who's gone out, yeah. So for Christian, it's obviously a different because he's in. I think you're in England, or Britain. I don't know what the right word to say is, Christian. Tell me, am I better to say Britain or England? I don't know. Is there no such place as Britain? Maybe, I'm not sure. But yeah, no, totally. The advantage of if you're on subscription, UK, Christian says UK, United Kingdom. That's correct. Yes, good. It's confusing for me because I'm Canadian, and the Queen is my queen as well, but I'm not a British subject. I'm not part of the UK. So Christian said Britain is okay too. Okay, that's good. So here's the ways you can buy Captivate. $29.99 per month. And what happens is that when Captivate 10 comes out, or X, or whatever, or Captivate 2017 or 2018, who knows what it's going to be called, you will just get it automatically. It's part of your subscription. The subscription does require a 1-year commitment, but there's a few other choices. So if you want the full version of Captivate, and I have bought, I have bought the full version of Captivate before. And if I choose Windows, let's say as an example, English. So it's going to cost me 1,100 US dollars. Now, you might think to yourself, well, that's even worse. That's really expensive because I won't get the new version when that comes out. And that's true. But what I've done is when I started buying Captivate, the first version I bought was version 5.5. Actually, it came part of the eLearning subscription. So I had that. But it allowed me to qualify for upgrades as we went. So one of the options that's available to me each and every time there's a new version of Captivate is I can buy it for $450. And that's what I've done in most cases. The reason being is that I'm not tied to any kind of monthly commitment. I do subscribe to the Creative Cloud. I have the full Creative Cloud or whatever the normal Creative Cloud is. So I have access to Photoshop and Audition and all these different applications that come with it. But my Captivate has always been these upgrade copies because, there are times where business is slow and maybe I'm not doing as much Captivate as I was doing before. I can just put it aside and not worry about it. I'm not committed to any kind of expense or anything like that. Obviously, Adobe would prefer you to subscribe because that's a continual revenue source for them. But sometimes you might have you might change your job. You may not be doing a lot of e-learning for a year or two, and in which case, having a monthly subscription to Captivate is obviously pretty expensive. So. Cheaper than the alternatives. One of the really cool advantages of being invited last year to DevLearn in Las Vegas was I got a chance to run around and see what the other authoring tools out there were doing. I took a close look at Articulate, and I really like what they're doing, to be honest with you. If I was not using Captivate for some reason, I would probably be using Articulate. But Articulate is more expensive when you consider the fact that I think it's $1,000 a year. $29.99. Someone can do the math for me. What does that work out to per year? About half, I think. I think it's somewhere around. What is that? $550, something like that. So, Captivate, I think, not only is it the number one authoring tool as far as market share is concerned, it's certainly the most affordable. So my history, Christian's also asking here, what other authoring software do you use? For the last number of years, it's been Captivate. I've exclusively done all my work in Captivate for a number of reasons. I can't afford to buy 5 or 6 different authoring tools just to satisfy the needs of maybe 1 or 2 additional companies. So I really position myself as, my personal brand as an e-learning developer, that I am a Captivate guy. If you need a Captivate guy, I'm your Captivate guy. But one of the things that that I'm very aware of is that I purchase, technically I'm, sorry, Wayne's it's even cheaper. Wayne's saying $359.88. See, I can't do math. I can only do e-learning. I need a course on math. Well, that's the other thing Christian points out too. Like you have, who's the time to learn it all? I mean, it's taken me 10 plus years to become an Adobe Captivate expert. I always feel uncomfortable using that word because I don't know if I don't actually have any credentials that say I'm an expert, but I certainly I think I'm I think I'm well knowledged on this. But so that's the thing. Like I've also used Toolbook, SumTotal's Toolbook. I really like that. It's actually a lot like Captivate in that it's very object driven. You've got objects on screen. You've got a lot of something very similar to advanced actions in Toolbook. The other thing I've used, I've played with Articulate, but I've never actually used it to develop any courseware. What else have I used? Yeah, I think that's it, really, to be honest with you. So my life has really been Captivate. I've used the first version of Captivate I used was version 2.0. I think it was still called Macromedia, at least for a while. We got an update, and then it was suddenly Adobe. And I decided to purchase my own copy while I'd gone back to school to complete a teaching and training adults course at my local college. Um, my experience as an e-learning instructional designer is kind of interesting in that I got started completely by accident. I was a manager of a retail store, and I did a little bit of in-store training of my employees, and I was looking at the job postings because I really didn't like being a store manager. And I saw someone posting, or there was a listing within my company for an instructional designer, which I had no idea what that was. And I applied for it. I didn't get it, but I impressed the hiring manager enough that when she had a mat leave, a maternity leave, someone going away for 1 year on a maternity leave while they had their child, and all that stuff. So I filled in for someone else for a year. I ended up getting hired permanently or full time. And when that job went away, because of course it was a contract position, they decided to downsize that department. And even though I'd been hired on to stay, um, I realized that when the job went away, I had no credentials as an instructional designer. In fact, I'm probably the best person to ask or to answer what Christian's asking now. Can you offer advice for getting on the ID ladder? I went for a job and I could prove I could author, but they said I lacked actual experience. That's the trick. That's a challenge. That I can only speak from my own experience, which I've given you a taste of, but I got lucky. I got that job through sheer determination, because it was certainly not based on experience or credentials. I don't even have a university degree. So that's the interesting thing, is that, I got hired through sheer determination. I just really impressed this person that originally hired me. And when that job went away, I did go back to school and got my certification as an adult trainer. So I've got some education, and I started looking for work. And the next job I got after that, gave me even more experience. And, a lot of it is just doing the best you can. And advertising yourself. And a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, ask me about the YouTube channel, about my website, about the blog posts, about participating on the e-learning community. It's like a billboard it's like a virtual version of your resume. You're constantly pounding the pavement in a digital sense, and letting people know that you're available. And I've had people reach out to me and say, listen, I saw your YouTube channel, or I watched a few of your YouTube videos, realized that I don't want to learn Adobe Captivate. Can I hire you to do the job? And that's gotten me a lot of the freelance work that I've done. So Christian's further expanding there. If you haven't seen it there, I'm thinking of approaching an association with a pitch of a free course. That's my next step. I would be very careful about that, Christian. I would think that the only problem with that is that it could devalue your abilities. And I think I've run into that probably more times than others as well. People will look at my free YouTube videos and they'll say, well, can you answer this question for me? I need a course that's going to do X, Y, Z, and it's got to have this, and it's got to have that. And I've got 150 different problems that I need you to solve. Can you tell me how to do that? And my response to those people, those folks are, as much as I'd love to help you out, and I am that kind of person that I do like to help people out, I have to think of my own family, my own needs, my own retirement funds, and all that kind of stuff. So you just have to be careful. Like I said, I've almost dug myself a little bit of a trench that that's hard to get out of, because of course every time I answer a question for free, and I do a lot of free questions, and usually this is the way I look at it. I look at it very simple. I would do this. Someone asks a question, how do I change the pass rate of an e-learning course? I don't have a problem telling someone how to do that, because you click the edit drop-down menu, go down to preferences, and it's in the scoring category, and you just simply type in the number, and I can give you that answer in 30 seconds or less. The other thing is that, again, you get those questions that are sort of in between. It could lead to, additional questions. So I'll answer someone's question, then I'll answer a second question, then a third question, then a fourth question. And then I realize I'm kind of doing their work for them. Someone else is paying them to develop this project. And I'm teaching them how to do it. I'm not being compensated for it. So at that point, I usually jump in and say, listen, if you're looking for a mentor, or if you're looking for a consultant, I can help you out, but I'm not going to sit here and use up time that another one of my clients has paid me to do work for them, doing free work for someone else. So just have to be careful. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Just be careful about doing a free course. Maybe what you could do is you could offer an introductory course. You could say, listen, I'd like to do a pro bono course, and be very upfront and say, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to gain experience. My hope is that you'll like my work so much that you'll hire me to do the second course, part 2. Maybe the first course is the history of the organization, right? Not really a great course from an educational or training perspective, but sometimes companies like these kind of watered down, simple courses. Yeah, I'm not seeing the link there, Wayne. But that's the thing. Like if you look at going back to my website here, I've always tried to be very clear about that. That's a challenge, right? Like I've got, hey, you have a question. I got lots of tutorials that you can watch 100 times if you want for free. Can't find what you're looking for? Ask me a question in the comments. If it's a simple enough question, I respond to everything, or I certainly try to. But again, okay, let's get serious. We're talking about a real consulting job. I'm not going to do that for free, and nor should you either. I think you should you say, listen, I can give you a preliminary something for free. Maybe it's a consultation. Maybe you say, listen, I'll do your needs analysis for free, but if you need me to build the course, that's going to be X number of dollars per hour, or a flat rate, or things like that. So Wayne's saying that was a response to when someone is mining you for the information to create their. Yeah, so that's I even, what, it's funny, I actually have it written out. I don't know where it is actually, but I'm not really good at the difficult conversations. So I've got it all written out. I've decided that, when I look at something, and I see that they're basically trying to get me to do their work for them, which is not all the time. I want to say that 99.99999% of the viewers of my YouTube channel have been really fantastic. I really appreciate the feedback I get from you guys. It's really been positive. But every now and then someone, like recently I had a fellow said, well, I saw in one of your videos you were doing a building evacuation course. I was wondering if you could sell me the project files so I could go and change it and sell it to other companies. No, since I sell it to other companies as well. Why would I give it to you, even at a reduced price, so that you could modify it and make your life easier? Like, I'm sorry, no, that's not how I do this. Um, if you have a question, I'll answer it. If you have a whole project, I'll consult with you, and you can hire me to help out. So that's sort of the way I would look at it. But Christian, uh, that's a hard one. Like I said, I got lucky. I fell into it by accident. Um, I didn't even know what an instructional designer was when I was hired, and I've become very passionate about it. I remember the first couple of weeks on the job, I turned to one of my colleagues and I said, "I can't believe they pay us to do this. This is so much fun." And he said, "Yeah, just wait. A year from now, you're going to hate it." But I've never hated it. I've always really enjoyed it because every day is a different challenge. Every day is, uh, like I love it. I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it. And it's a good thing too, because I tell you what, as a retail manager, I wasn't very good. The one thing I was good at was helping my employees become better employees, better salespeople, better, at developing their careers and so on. And that part of my job I really enjoyed. But you know, dealing with profit and loss statements and doing inventory and opening and closing and cash balancing, and that's a challenge as well. Yeah, Wayne's pointing out here that the eLearning Guild posts jobs as well as the ATD website. eLearning Guild has free sign up at ATD or ATD, I don't know. One of the things that I've done, like I said, is maybe you don't have the education, or maybe you don't have the experience. I went back to school and I did a teaching and training adults. That was the thing, is that when I lost my first instructional design job because they decided to downsize my department. Um, it was actually for a telecom company, and they had hired a whole bunch of employees from another telecom company, and there was a lot of redundancy. So they looked at all of us, and I think I was probably one of the more senior employees, and I cost the company probably more money than most of the other ones. And it was a cost saving measure. Get rid of Paul; he's too expensive. I sort of was at an assistant learning manager position, and they eliminated that. They were trying to flatten the army, as it were. They eliminated that position, but they couldn't take my salary away. That's sort of the rule, at least within that company or in my country. I don't know. Once you're paid something, they can't get you to take a pay reduction without something else compensating you. I don't know. Anyway, within that company, they made it a rule that I still got that same salary, even though I didn't have the responsibility anymore, which was fine with me, because what I was passionate about was designing training, not managing people. So I certainly was an expensive employee asset, so I was one of the first to go. But then I realized, I'm unemployed. I'm an unemployed instructional designer with no credentials, and only, I think there was about 9 years of experience with that company, 8 years experience, something like that. Thanks, Christian. We'll see you next time. But that's the thing for me, was that I went back to school. I took a few courses. More recently, the Canadian version of the ATD is the CSTD. Which has actually been renamed something else. The Institute for Performance and Learning, I think, is what they're called now, but it's really the same group. And I got my CTDP designation, Certified Training Development Practitioner, and that doesn't require experience. It requires you to develop a project and give it to them for assessment. And there's like a test and a few other things that you have to do. And once you've done that, and you get the certification. I don't think I've got it handy. It's like a little certificate that says you are a certified training development practitioner. So while you may not have that experience, go walk into an interview with a photocopy of that, hand that to them along with your resume, and it's it's beneficial to have some of those credentials as well. So I've worked on that, and obviously experience will come when it comes. Certainly, you could do something like what I've done too, and that was one of the things. When I found myself out of work, I decided to start doing the YouTube channel, do the YouTube videos, because what is it? They're basically little webinars teaching people how to do something. It's practicing my skill as an adult training professional, and so it really just comes down to figuring out a way to do something that gives you the experience you need. So Christian's, I guess, logged off. He was the one with the original question about gaining experience. If anyone has other questions, I really didn't have a set period of time for this this particular Q&A live stream session. So we're at approximately an hour right now. So I think what we'll do is we'll finish up. And, I've decided that I'm going to do these a couple of times a month, maybe 2 times a month. There seems to be enough of a demand that it's worth an hour of my time to come on and share some of the things I'm experiencing and share some of the, the answers to problems you guys might have. And hopefully you've enjoyed the last hour. So guys, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already done that. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul Wilson LD, LD for Learning and Design. Also, check out my website, paulwilsonlearning.com. Again, if you know of someone who's looking to hire someone like me, obviously Christian's not going to refer people to me because he's looking for the next big opportunity for himself first, and he should do that. But barring that, if you've already got a job and you're already busy and you know that they're looking for an experienced instructional designer whose specialty is Adobe Captivate, I'd appreciate any referrals that you're willing to give me. So we'll see you guys next time.